What's going on, guys? Rich Butler here. Thanks for taking the time to hit that download button or press play and check out a brand new episode of Toys and Tech of the Trade, your one-stop shop for toys, tech, and talk with some assembly required. If this is your first time tuning into an episode of Toys and Tech of the Trade, first off, welcome. Secondly, Toys and Tech of the Trade shares the tech that creators and entrepreneurs utilize to run their businesses, create their content, and overall just be more productive. The toy aspect, of course, is the stuff that helps them just find a little joy in what they do, whether it's collecting action figures, statues, collectibles, or going broader and collecting cars, radio equipment, guns, musical equipment, whatever the case may be. The definition of toys is a little broad here, and I usually like to say that in quotes just because toys is a universal name for some of the things we love. All right. Let's get into some housekeeping before we get this show on the road. First and foremost, thank you to everyone that has been downloading and sharing the show on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, and Spotify. We really, really appreciate it. If you are not aware, we are putting episodes of the show on iTunes, so if you haven't subscribed to Rageworks, not on iTunes, YouTube. We are putting episodes of Toys and Tech of the Trade on YouTube, so by all means, if you haven't subscribed to Rageworks on YouTube, and you'll be able to listen to episodes there. Last but not least, if you are downloading the episode from iTunes, please take a moment to rate the show. We'd really appreciate it. Plus, more ratings, more reviews definitely make it easier to pitch the show to potential guests. We definitely have a solid assortment of guests on the horizon, but by all means, we always want to have more. So definitely any little bit helps. And if you take a moment and give us a review, whether it's 5 stars or less, it doesn't matter, but any bit of engagement definitely would be appreciated. Last but not least, I know many of you have reached out on social asking about what if I'm going to be doing more gift guides, product reviews, etc. on the podcast, and the answer to that is yes. I had wanted to do a gift guide previously for Valentine's Day, but unfortunately, life got in the way with a newborn, so I was unable to do that. But you will see gift guides for graduation, Father's Day, and possibly Mother's Day as well. Just real quick, 10, 15-minute episodes sharing 5 to 10 products that I think, a mother or a father or a graduate would enjoy. And also product reviews. I know some of you have been looking forward to me doing some audio product reviews, and I will be doing those as well. Whether it's, new microphones, headphones, electronic equipment, toys, action figures. There's going to be different kind of reviews for different things because that's what we talk about here. But yes, that stuff will be on the horizon. I just want to make sure that we have ample guests for the foreseeable future before I start doing some of that, because I don't want to bombard you guys with a bunch of stuff that you don't want to check out and take away from our guests. Speaking of guests, let's move into that. My guest for this episode is Carlos, aka Charlie 5.5, who I was introduced to on Instagram after making a post about the DC Primal Age figures from Funko, which borrow a lot from the Heman style of action figure, super muscular, jacked figures that are done with DC's superheroes and villains. Thus far, the first wave has Batman, Superman, the Joker, Wonder Woman, and a few others. And again, they look right at home amongst old school 80s Masters of the Universe action figures. Charlie actually commented on one of my posts. I checked out his account, saw some of the awesome custom work that he's doing using the Masters of the Universe body style, aka the 5.5 style. Figures like Kratos, Space Ghost, you name it. He's done some amazing customization pieces, and I was just blown away by the stuff that I saw, and I wanted to share his work with you guys. So if you're an action figure junkie looking to get into customization, or just want to learn about somebody else's interesting profession, then by all means, strap yourselves in, grab a cold beverage, and enjoy the toys and tech of Charlie's trade. All right, we're going deep into toys on this week's episode of Toys and Tech of the Trade as I sit down with Carlos Rojas. Carlos is a action figure customizer on Instagram as Charlie_5.5. Came across his work during a recent spree of posts that we were doing on Rageworks on Instagram, and really loved the work that he was doing. So I wanted to take this time to sit down and share the toys and tech of his trade. Carlos, how's it going?
Oh, everything's good, man. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to sit down and chat with us about this amazing work that you're doing with action figure customization. For those of you that aren't familiar with Carlos's work, he does customization using the Heman style of action figures, which have seen a resurgence recently, thanks to Funko's Savage World. But, give us a little background on what got you into customization and why that particular style of action figure.
Well, actually, I've always been a collector of action figures. I never customized anything.
Okay.
I was searching for a vintage Remco Hercules. I don't know if you remember that line from Remco.
I've seen photos of it.
Yeah, the warlords and warriors and whatnot.
Yep.
And during the search, a figure from Zoloward came up, the Hercules figure. And I looked at it and I said, I've never seen this figure before. I don't recall it from the 80s. And I looked up the Zoloward page and was amazed that a company nowadays was doing figures in the vintage 80s style. They've been doing it for a few years. They're an independent company. And that's pretty much what got me back into 5.5 scale. I've always liked He-Man, but I wasn't collecting heavily. And they showed a picture for one of their upcoming figures. It was one of the Craven repaints. He was done in white and blue. And I was, fascinated by it. And I had a Craven, and I said, man, well, how hard would it be to actually repaint it and try to match it? Because it was for a pre-order, and it was going to be a few months away. And I have a friend who does arts and crafts and whatnot. And she said, you know what? Just do it. There's really no wrong way to do it. So just try it out. And that's pretty much how it got started. It spiraled out of control pretty much after that.
Yeah, I mean, some of your work has been, especially now, like I said, with the resurgence of, that particular style of figure. I remember, it's funny you mentioned the Warlord. I remember buying a version of the DC character Warlord that was done in that same 5.5 He-Man style from a bodega here in New York back when I was a kid. Yeah. And I didn't even, we all had that one family member that used to give us like the toys that weren't the real toys.
Exactly.
And, I ended up getting it because I forgot which family member I was with. And I was like, oh, that guy looks really cool. And, it was like $4. And, I thought it was just like this amazing character. I ended up finding out that it was based on the DC character Warlord. And I'm like, oh, years later I found this out. But at the time he was just amongst all the He-Man figures. It was so crazy because that style they would do anything in that style. They did, I think, a Conan like that too.
Yeah, they had the Conan license, which was supposedly first went to Mattel. When Mattel turned it down because they saw how bloody the movie was, Remco picked it up.
Yep. Yeah, they and then it's funny because I see the documentary, the Toys That Made Us, and I saw like them talking about He-Man and all the stuff that went into it, and it amuses me because at the time that was the top of the line, man. When you were buying He-Man toys in the 80s, it was every character was pretty much the same sculpt with a different head.
Exactly. And it was brilliance. I mean, all you had to do was you had the body style. All you had to do was make different head molds and different accessories, and you had a whole new figure.
Yep. And then they started getting real crazy when they did the Moss Man.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, you started doing some of them, and when I checked out your work, I one of my favorites was the Space Ghost that you did. And, I was just blown away by that. And also the Moon Knight. The Moon Knight was top notch. What is, how do you go about, customizing? What materials do you use? How to, walk me through, or just walk the listeners through a typical customization job that you do for a figure.
Well, basically it's, kind of like the Super 7 logo. There's characters in this body style that nobody's making. So I just wanted to have a character in that body style. So first, I'll think of like what character I want. I've always wanted to make a Moon Knight. And then the Funko series came along, and their Scarecrow character, I just looked at him and I was like, this guy could be easy a Moon Knight. And the first thing you got to find is like the silhouette. You know, what parts would work for that character. Once I get that down, you know, I'll take a picture of it. I'll paint it on an app, see what colors go right, what emblems, because you could transfer it. But the thing with Funko is when they transfer it to the Barbarian style, you have a little bit of liberties there. You know, you don't have to make it exactly as the comic version. You can make them a little, you know, little grungier, a little more Barbarian style.
Absolutely.
So, you know, to make the figures, sometimes you have to remove parts. I'll shave them off with something as simple as a pocket knife. Then you have to sand it down to get the area nice and smooth. When you're going into painting, there's a few steps you want to take there. You want to obviously clean up the figure. You pass light, not too abrasive scrub on it to get that layer of sheen. Because even if you don't see it, all figures have a little protective layer to protect the paint. So you want to get that sheen off so the paint will stick good to the plastic. You want to use good paints, of course. Acrylics, Testors are really good, but there's a lot of good model paints out there, Citadel and others. And you get your base coat and you go from there pretty much. But the thing to make the character, you have to give it something that will resemble, even if you're taking some liberties to make them Barbarian style, you have to keep some core elements to it. Like Moon Knight, you have to have the crescent moon on the chest. Space Ghost, you need that little Space Ghost silhouette in the middle of his chest. You got to get the colors right. You know, you can take some liberties, but you have to keep the character where it does resemble, the original character style.
Yeah, I mean, when you did the Wolverine and you used the Primal Age Batman for it, I said to myself, I'm like, this is some real creativity right here. And for something like that, like using those examples, how do you have a particular sculpt you want to use for a particular character? Meaning, like now with the Funko Primal Age, you know, like, hey, I could pick up some of these Mortal Kombat guys; they'll be easy to convert into something else. Or, you know, how do you source those parts? You know, are you picking stuff off of eBay, garage sales?
Well, I started customizing with Zolowar figures. I would find heads that I could retool the necks so it could work on that neck peg. Like Loyal Subjects I've done other figures that, you know, where the heads are a little bigger to scale, but you can get them on that peg, which is a little bit chunkier. With a Funko, what I look for mostly is Amazon warehouse deals where people return things.
Really? And
usually the figures run $12, and when they return them, they put them up for $7. And if you have a Prime account, it's $7 shipped. You know, so I get, yeah.
That's a cool way to do that, man. That's a good tip right there.
Oh yeah, I'm always hunting down those warehouse deals because people return them and they're not used. You know, they're still sealed, but the box is obviously all torn up, you know, or whatever. But the figure itself is complete, you know, with all its accessories, and it hasn't been used. So, and even if it has been opened, it's not an issue because I'm usually just looking for parts, really.
Now, do you end up selling your customs, or do you end up keeping them, or is it more just from a hobby perspective? Are you doing custom orders? Have you turned it into a business?
No, it's just a hobby, man. But I have received a lot of requests for figures. I did one Kratos. I used Mr. Freeze head and the Joker body.
Nice.
And I've gotten lots of requests for that guy. And it's kind of hard to turn people down because some people are your pals, you know, and they really insist. But I really just do one and I move on to the next one because I just see it as a hobby. I don't you know, do 2 or 3 of the same character. I just do one and I fall in love with it and I keep it, you know. But
yeah.
I don't know. Someday maybe I'll do more than one and just to have to. It's not even to make money, just to, you know, give it to someone who will appreciate it, you know.
Well, I ask because, you know, the customization market has taken off so much with so many different people doing different customs. Like I said, what got my attention was you doing it using the He-Man body style. And the thing about it is that sometimes the work is so quality that it forces these companies to look and be like, well, damn, maybe we should do that. I've been seeing it a lot with people that do Funko Pop customs. They'll do a custom of a certain character, and then Funko release that character, 3-6 months down the road, and they'll be like, oh, which one, they'll do like a before and after, like which one was better type of a side-by-side comparison. People will be like, oh man, the one you did was better because you did this and this and this. I think that, using those subtle touches make, these types of figures stand out.
Yeah. I think a lot of, I've gotten a lot of attention. I've gotten, good remarks from people who actually work at Funko. They definitely have a killer design team, the design team there. I think they're just limited by what the higher ups tell them they need, but those guys can make anything.
Well,
anything that requested.
Looking at the figures you've worked on, which probably has been your favorite that you've done thus far? I mean, obviously I can name at least 3 or 4 that I really enjoyed, but which one is it that you stand back and it's like your signature piece that you look at it, you're like, damn, I did a hell of a job on this?
It's one of the simpler ones. I did Captain America using the Batman head. I did with the Scorpion arms and Mike Myers' body. That one is just because I'm such a fan of Captain America, and I've always wanted him in Barbarian style. That one was just for that purpose. But it was, one of the simpler ones I did, but it's one of my favorites. That one, and probably second up will be the Batman Beyond. That was just a simple repaint of the Batman figure as is. Just painted them black, red emblem, and silver on the belt. That was pretty much it.
You do a lot of great backgrounds with your figures. Is that just something that you have customized, or do you have different backgrounds for each of your figures? Like, how does that work? Because I know I saw Castle Grayskull on one, and then I saw some other crazy stuff for the other. I'm like, man, he has backgrounds for everything.
Yeah, well, the Castle Grayskull, I wanted to buy the classics ones, but they've gotten kind of absurd on price since the Toys That Made Us came out.
Yep,
so I
absolutely.
bought a vintage one and repainted it.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, and then I bought in like these Imaginext sets, and I repaint those. I repainted one that's like a Yeti temple that looks more like a Chinese dojo type deal, and then there's another one that's a temple. That one was, I just retouched a few things, gold on the eyes and whatnot. And the Batcave, of course, from Funko, that's one of my favorites right now. I actually got 2 of those.
Yeah, I saw it
together.
I saw that one in Target. I was blown away. I was like, wow, they're really going for it with the big, Castle Grayskull style play sets for this stuff, because I saw at a Target, they had like the figures, the Batcave, and like the old metal lunch boxes. I was like, wow, this is a real crazy trip down memory lane.
Yeah. Oh, it's definitely, it's worth it just on the nostalgia factor. I bought in the Batcave. It's exactly the scale with Castle Grayskull. And for the price, you're not going to get a playset like that for that price. And they're even cheaper on Amazon.
Yeah.
Amazon is very, particular with their warehouse space. So they're down to like 45.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were talking before we started recording about, Toy Fair, and I saw, Super 7 doing a lot of the Filmation He-Man stuff, and people just going crazy for seeing all that. And, there was like, and I thought of what you're doing immediately, because I saw some of the figures. They were like, oh, we're doing this clear one and we're doing this glow in the dark one. And I'm like, oh man, this is going to be loads of new material for him to customize.
They're milking that He-Man mold. Yeah, definitely. They're milking those molds pretty much. I've worked with those as well. I've done, of course, with the Super 7 ones, because the 5.5s, I'm collecting mostly the new stuff. That's really what's gotten my attention. I've done an Anti-Eternia He-Man. I've got a Faker He-Man. I did a Platino. That's that top Argentinian Top Toys variant. I did a Battle Armor He-Man using the Super 7 head. I pretty much did a head transplant there to a commemorative one.
Yeah,
and I've done a few others there.
Yeah, Super 7's
that's a fun line, but I don't think they've gotten on the vintage ones. I don't think they figured out that leg joint yet, because I've got like 15 of these figures, and really, I think only one of them, the second joint, works correctly. The others, even with heating and whatnot, they're not working correctly yet.
The Sheera sculpt throws me off.
I'm sorry?
The Sheera sculpt throws me off, man. Every time I look at the sculpt for Sheera, I'm like, why does she just look like a repainted Tila? Like every time I look at it, I'm like, I don't know, something about it rubs me the wrong way for that figure.
Yeah, it's definitely a nod to the Tila face. I mean, you look at it and it does look like Tila cosplaying as Sheera.
Yep. It's crazy. And I was the Orko, they did like a completely all black Orko and then an all white glowing He-Man. And I'm like, man,
Yeah.
for customization, this is great, but just somebody buying it. I don't know if anybody wants to buy like a solid gold Man-at-Arms,
Yeah, like the solid gold He-Man. You could just take the regular He-Man and spray paint him gold, and voila, there it is.
Yeah,
it's nothing too much. And I don't know. I'm kind of holding off on the next waves. I'm pre-ordering Trapjaw and Merman and a few others, but the whole line, it's see what happens. But I want to see how those leg joints work because so far I'm not sold yet.
Now, when you're doing the customization and you're going through, like, do the characters, like, let's say like Trapjaw, you look at a character like Trapjaw and the way that his mold is so unique. Is that something that automatically gets on your radar? Like, oh man, I could take this Trapjaw and turn him into like a Terminator or turn him into something else just because the sculpt is so unique?
Usually I tend to stay away from the ones that are really emblematic like that because they're more difficult to work with. You're gonna have to send off some parts. And,
okay.
Sculpt some other parts, and so I like to stay to more basic body styles because it gives you more room to work. If it's something that's that specific, then it might require more work.
Yeah, I think that with regards to that, when you were talking about that, you have to sand it down and remove and get it down to the base coat. Are you doing like a hand sander? Or are you using like a Dremel to get that to that consistency?
No, I like to work with just the hand sanding because I don't want to take it too far.
Gotcha.
I like to go slow. I don't want to take it too far down because it's just that clear coating that they throw on the figures to protect the paint. That's really what you want to get off, so you could get your paint on there and then seal it after you're done painting.
So what's the average completion time for you? What's it take you to do a custom? A week usually between sanding and then getting the base coat off and obviously real life getting in the way?
Yeah. On average, it depends, man. Some come together really quick. I say maybe the fastest is, well, you always wait a day after you paint it because you don't want to be sealing the paint while it's still, you want to let the paint cure if you want it to really last. If you want to do a rush job, you could probably do the whole process in maybe 3 hours, but you really want to let the paint cure. So I usually will paint a coat, let it cure, give it the second coat, let it cure. If I were to add up the extract time, I say between 3 to 4 hours each figure.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy. I mean, that especially because when you're painting, you were saying that the painting takes, you have to let the paint cure. That I'm sure there's been mishaps with that where the paint is a little tacky when you try to seal it, right?
Oh, yeah. It depends. Like sometimes I'll use enamel paint. While enamel looks really good, it's really unforgiving to work with because it dries kind of quick and it creates a nice little coating, but it's a little more difficult to work with, and enamel's tends more to be that give off that tacky feeling than acrylics.
All right, that there you go. I learned a little something new there. Now,
yeah.
Well, with the Street Fighter line that was recently announced by Funko, I'm sure you have now some great ideas in your head to work with. What's on the radar for you? What's your next custom that you wanna try and create?
Oh, well, that Blanca is screaming to be turned into a Hulk, and aside from the obvious repaint from optional characters, repaint the suits and whatnot.
Yep.
One that I'm looking forward to, I've always wanted to put together a Flash Gordon, but I haven't found the right parts. I think with the new the Primal Age, the second wave, that Flash figure and that Superman head, I think that might work for it. So that's one I'm really looking forward to, Flash Gordon. Because I already have done the Phantom, so I need a Flash Gordon.
Oh yeah, definitely a Flash Gordon would be dope, man. If you could pull off a Ming the Merciless too, that would be pretty badass.
Oh yeah. I have a friend from where is he from? I think he's from Iceland or something. He took the Zorn head and he sculpted it to work as the Phantom head. But
really?
Since it has that P on the forehead, I think it'll work as Ming. But I have to look into it. I haven't messed around with the sculpt he sent me yet. Yeah.
Yeah, those.
Yeah, in the community, you get to meet lots of sculptors and whatnot, and you help each other out.
Well, that's where I was going to next. You know, you were talking about it, but before we started recording about ZoloCon, you know, and how you went to that event. You know, for those not familiar, just give us a little background on the event and what you were seeking out when you went to that particular event, besides obviously meeting with other creators and getting other figures.
Well, for me, one, it's a flight. So I live in Puerto Rico, so I had to get on a plane to get there.
Awesome.
And I met Mike a few years ago at New York Comic Con. I usually just frequent New York Comic Con, and he hosts this event in Warminster, PA. And really, I didn't have ideas to purchase anything in particular. My main goal was really to meet up with the creators he had there, and and obviously pick up some figures from his line, because he always has some amazing exclusives from that Realm of the Underworld line he has. So I got the exclusives, but mostly the best part for me was just meeting the people there, because it's a more intimate venue, and super nice, super great to go to. Because you go to these big cons like New York or San Diego, and it's almost work to be there.
Yep,
making
100%.
all these lines, and yeah, and it tires you out. These smaller venues like ZoloCon, and I'm also looking forward to PowerCon. I don't know if you're familiar with that event.
I've heard of it.
It's for just Masters of the Universe.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, the best thing I took away from ZoloCon was definitely meeting the creators. Walter Harris from Hammer of the Gods, Chance Priest with Victory Comics, Frank Russo, who does Musculoids. Awesome, top-notch guys. And, you sit there, you talk shop, you geek out over each other's work. And it's a great convention. I definitely recommend it for anybody there. And also the vintage finds are amazing. If you have the right budget and the time to look through bins and whatnot, there's some amazing finds to be had there.
Have you have you also leveraged now, especially now that your work is on social media, have you leveraged like some of the online communities also, like Facebook, stuff like that, to find other people that are in the customization, or is it something that's more niche that has grown because of attending events like ZoloCon and events like that?
No, there's been independent creators for a good while now. There's there's a really good Facebook page. It's a 5.5, and it's basically just dedicated to people who customize and collect figures in this form factor.
Okay.
But yeah, there have been customizers, and you're familiar with Joe Amato and Master English. Master English actually did that Eldor years ago. Now Super 7's catching up to his work.
Yeah, Super 7.
They actually found the original Eldor. Yeah.
Yeah, they're definitely expanding with that stuff. I saw that they did a hero. I was just like, wow, I felt like this was done by somebody not that long ago. So it's cool to see that.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And they're seeing the value. I mean, the vintage line for them is selling out, and it seems like it's simpler and more profit margin than with the classics line, because they're selling them for 20, and it's a pretty good margin in there.
What'd you think of the Maddie Collector series that they used to do, that used to be out from Mattel?
I have a few of those. I'm not big into that scale, but okay. I do have a few of those. I'm not too much of a fan of the subscription style service, where if you're not subscribed, you miss out on a few parts, especially if you're a completist. I'm not a completist, but if there are figures that you really want, then having to be tied down to a subscription service is I don't know, it's not for me.
Yeah, it was
but
tough.
They did some work. They did some incredible work there.
Yeah, I couldn't do that for that exact reason. Like, there were some subscription figures that they were putting out, and I'm like, listen, I just want the one, like that's kind of how I am, especially with the properties like that, being an 80s baby myself, I just want to try and support that stuff. So, it's like when somebody does a really cool Thundercats piece, like I actually bought the Thundercats, the large Lion-O that Mezco did. Because,
oh yeah, that one's awesome.
Yeah, so, and I got lucky with that, the Mezco, I got a really good deal on the Lion-O and the Mumra from that line. But that's what I mean. Like, very few people are approaching those properties the same way. Like, obviously with Voltron coming back on Netflix and, kind of put Voltron back on everybody's radar. And it was cool because they actually re-released the 84 Voltron alongside the Netflix one. So, it actually gave me a chance to buy the 84 one, which I had as a kid,
Oh yeah, that one's awesome. I saw it. Yeah, I remember that one.
Where do you see the, licenses like He-Man and stuff going? I mean, now there's rumors of a new Masters of the Universe film on the horizon. Do you think that there's still a market for that with the current generation of kids? And I ask this because, He-Man back then, man, it was that was a 100% boy toy. You know what I mean? Like you play, like that was a figure, like you knew, like this is a boy's action figure line, and it's gonna sell out because it has weapons. Everybody's jacked and ripped, and you got all these weird characters. Do you feel that going back to that simplicity, especially now, with just the climate of how things are nowadays, is gonna be successful? And I'm asking you just as a fan,
Well, I mean, the movie, if it's a good movie, might do something for the line. I don't know if it'll do much for the scale of figure, for the style of figure. Because I have a pretty good barometer with my son. He's 10.
Okay.
So I can see by his likes and dislikes, what works. And this, like you say, it's a simple form factor. And kids these days, they have so many figures with, such high articulation. And they have, electronic devices and whatnot. A simple figure really might not catch their attention at later ages. I think this style of figure might catch the attention of a child maybe between 4 and 8.
Okay.
I think is pretty much where the core audience would be for this style of figure when you're a child, outside of obviously the adult collectors. And once they pass 8, I think that's it's going to be more difficult to get a kid involved in this style of figure. But at, between 4 and 8, the kids like to, bash toys around and whatnot. And they're not really looking to pose them in all sorts of crazy poses. They just want to, play with their toys and bash them around.
Yep, throw them in a backpack.
And I think that's what Funko was going for with the Primal Age line, the DC Primal Age line.
Well, now that you mentioned you have a child, how does he, I'm sure you've shared like, older He-Man cartoons, stuff like that with him. How does he view that that era when you share that with him?
It breaks my heart because I think he just does it to be polite, but I don't think he could care about it. He
really?
Could care less about it. Yeah, he's not really, especially the cartoon. I mean, come on, nowadays, with all this, the advancements in animation, and the flow of the stories, it's not going to catch a kid's attention nowadays. It's great for us. And again, maybe if I didn't catch him sooner, maybe I had to present it to him when he was a little younger, because I think I showed it to him when he was already about 8.
Oh man, okay.
Because I like I said, I wasn't really collecting 5.5 till I went to the 2017 New York Comic Con and met Mike, and I got introduced into the whole Zola World figure line, and that caught on from there. But that's when I started going back to He-Man, and I started showing to him, but I think it was too late for him. He was already on to other things.
Yeah, when they did that newer He-Man cartoon and 4 Horsemen started doing the figures, I said to myself, all right, we're turning a corner, because this He-Man cartoon is pretty cool. The designs are crazy looking. I was just bummed because obviously the 4 Horsemen figures were expensive, so obviously little younger kids couldn't get into it, man. But that cartoon had so much promise.
The cartoon I like the cartoon more than the figure line. The figure line didn't really work for me. I didn't like it too much, but the cartoon was good.
Yeah,
good. And four Horsemen sculpts were good. It's just the final product. I think the statues were much better, but the figures itself, they just didn't work for me.
I think the only figure that stands out from that line that was awesome was the Skeletor that was Keldor with the burned face. Yeah. Oh man, that was top of the line at the time. I said to myself, I'm like, wow, they've never shown like Skeletor's origin and who he was. Like, I really enjoyed that they did that,
Yeah, that was a nice nod. Yeah, definitely.
What do you think of the Netflix's new Sheera cartoon? Do you think that new style is, what are your thoughts on the style for that, and how's that going to translate to merchandise?
I tried to see it and didn't do anything for me. I didn't really like it too much. I don't know if kids will like it, honestly. kids today are much smarter. They have so many more options that I don't think it's. I see what they were going for, but I don't think it worked out in execution.
Yeah, I mean, my wife, she was a big Sheera fan growing up, and she was like, I don't know about this. And it's funny, I just had my daughter, and we tried, because it's like, we go through different cartoons to keep her attention, and, we put it on, and like the colors kind of work, but she was just like, meh, I mean, she's also a baby, but like My Little Pony keeps her attention like for half an hour straight, so it's like clearly there's a connection there, but it just wasn't the same. I felt that the animation style was such a far departure from what kids were used to. I mean, well, that was a problem too. I started looking at it through, 80s baby glasses, and I'm like, maybe because it looks like Steven Universe or some of these other cartoons, it's going to get people's attention, but it kind of just came and went,
Yeah, definitely. And it's the same with the movie. It depends, how the Masters movie, is made. I hope they're more inclined to, more like Lord of the Rings meets Star Wars. That's
the scale you need.
Work.
That's the scale you need. I think in this day and age, and it's strange because I felt with when G.I. Joe came out, that first G.I. Joe movie was terrible, but then that second movie kind of turned the corner, and I'm like, wow, Cobra Commander looks like Cobra Commander. Firefly looks like Firefly. Like, they definitely started really paying closer attention to that. But I think at that stage, I'm like, I think it's a little too late now,
Yeah, I think that if they revisit it, they just have to just do it over.
Yeah, and there was a lot of potential there, man. Like the Storm Shadow design, the Snake Eyes design were so well done. Shiny face Cobra Commander, but then it was too late. Like the ship had already sailed, and people's interest was gone.
Exactly. Exactly. And yeah.
No, you go ahead. You were going to say something?
No, it's just, they're, you see Hollywood revisiting all these 80s properties, and, they have to get writers who understand how to translate it. Like I'm looking at, I was just looking at The Umbrella Academy on Netflix.
Yep.
And I remember reading the comic, and I'm like, man, they got it so right. They translated this so right. And it's not verbatim on the comic. It does have its differences, but the essence of what made the story and characters great, which is what you have to do when you revisit these properties like G.I. Joe and Transformers and He-Man.
And it's funny because I was going to save this for the hot seat, but I figured this would be a great way to transition. What's a property you'd like to see from the 80s era redone, and that you think would be successful?
I think G.I. Joe would work.
Okay.
Try different scales. Because we've seen the 3 3/4, we've seen the 12-inch. I think they could try different scales, maybe 4.5. Even the 5.5 style would work with them. Not big, but make a short run with those. I think G.I. Joe, because it's such a rich history, it's got so many characters. I mean, you can make characters for years and not deplete it. They have close to 300 or over 300 characters. I'd like to see G.I. Joe. There's a few ones that I would see, but it's more for myself. I don't think they'd be particularly successful or not. I mean, maybe Silverhawks and Thundar, the old Hanna-Barbera superheroes I like a lot. But I don't know if they'll work nowadays. It's just me being selfish. Thinking marketing wise, I think G.I. Joe has the best shot making a good resurgence if done right.
It's funny you mentioned Thundar, because I always felt like out of a lot of those properties, especially now, like Space Ghost would do really well if you did it kind of comedy, like a little tongue in cheek, but still still badass, but like have a little fun, kind of like how they're trying to do with Shazam, like DC's trying to do.
Yeah,
I definitely think
that definitely work. I mean, the Space Ghost Coast to Coast was hilarious. Oh
man, it was great.
Show. Yeah,
it was ahead of its time.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely ahead of its time. But it worked. It worked great.
There was a rumor that they wanted to do Mask and tie Mask into G.I. Joe, and I said they just want to do Mask so that they could get all the money from the car companies like they did with Transformers.
Oh, I mean, yeah, definitely. That's probably something that goes into those type of decisions. But I wasn't too familiar with Mask, but if it's a property to work with, it'd be G.I. Joe, I guess.
Yeah, I think originally the intent was that Mask was supposed to be part of G.I. Joe, and then they kind of just split it off into its own thing, back then. But I think now they were looking at it to kind of reintegrate it back in and then use that as part of G.I. Joe, allegedly. I mean, that there's been a lot of back and forth with that, and it's been kind of quiet lately.
Yeah. It'd be interesting. I mean, yeah. I mean, and I don't know why Hasbro hasn't gone back. I mean, G.I. Joe and Legend scale would be pretty good. I think it'd sell pretty good, and
hell yeah,
it's a good way to introduce it to new kids and to us adult collectors. I mean, a Legend style series of G.I. Joe would be killer for them.
That's an amazing idea, man. I'd kill for like a Legend size Cobra Commander with the different head sculpts, with the cloth head, the metal mask, and the shiny face. Oh man, that would be amazing. I think you hit an idea, man. That would be great.
Yeah. Definitely, you started out with the Legend scale. That's the one that's selling.
Yeah,
and kids will get it. I mean, what kid doesn't like ninjas still? And
yep,
and the military's still in high regards nowadays. Kids like it.
No, I think that's a great idea, and I think with that we can segue into the hot seat. Rapid fire series of questions, real off the cuff. Obviously, this being toys and tech of the trade. We're going to definitely ask you some tech stuff and some toy stuff, but we'll start with the tech side of things. You mentioned when you are mocking up your figures, you do like a virtual model. What do you use for that?
Oh, just my phone. I just take a picture and I'll paint, use the paint app to just paint on it. It's nothing.
Oh, okay. What phone are you using nowadays?
I got a Galaxy S9 Plus.
Oh, nice.
I used to have the Note. The Note used to be much better to work with the pen, but I changed it to the S9.
Yeah, I was a heavy Note user, man. I remember those days. That phone was ahead of its time.
Yeah.
When you turn on your phone, what are 3 mobile apps you can't live without?
Mobile apps I can't live without would probably be Facebook, Instagram, and probably I don't know, WhatsApp.
Nice. All right. One website you frequent on a daily basis?
Probably Amazon Prime, just looking for deals for parts. That's nice. Probably my main one that I hit at least once a day.
What's your favorite piece of tech besides your phone or your computer?
Favorite piece of tech? I'm not very much a tech guy. Not phone or computer. Oh, you got me there. I don't think I have any more tech.
Wow. Wow. I mean, having kids, no video games in your house.
Oh, well, I guess the PS4, but mostly, to entertain my boy. I kind of lost my speed in regards to games and
really?
Fortnite and whatnot. I'm not as good as I used to be anymore.
Oh man, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's funny you mentioned Fortnite because man, that's all everybody was selling at Toy Fair when we were talking about it. Just Fortnite this, Fortnite that. Clearly it's a demographic thing, right? I guess your son is all over that, right?
Oh yeah, that's his. Yeah, he's a few hours a day on that. It's like he's training for war or something.
Nice. I'm sure you probably say to yourself, if you were dedicated to your chores or dedicated to your schoolwork like you were to Fortnite, I'm sure you've said that at least once.
Yeah.
Well,
it's like they think there's a career in that or something. I don't know.
Well, you know what it is? It's funny you say that because now with streaming, so many people are making money off of streaming and turning streaming into a career. I mean, it's difficult, but who'd have thought, from when we were growing up to now that it's like, oh, I could get paid to play video games and people watch me play. Like where the hell was that when we were growing up?
I know. He shows me all these people on YouTube and he tells me the absurd amounts of money that they're getting paid. And I'm like, you have got to be kidding me.
Yeah, man, it's insane. Well, it's funny. You mentioned that you used to play. What was the last game you played personally?
The game that I've always gone back to, and it's different incarnations of Tekken, the fighting game.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, my favorite.
I'm a big Tekken fan, dude. I hear you.
Yeah.
So, the people always have a lot of fun with this. What was the last thing that you purchased that's less than $100 that's made your life easier or more enjoyable?
Less than
Could be anything, man.
I
Less
think
than $100.
I just bought an Amazon Fire tablet just to read, be able to carry my comic books and whatnot around. But that's pretty much it. It's just because I'm so behind. It's not really, I'm so behind on tech. But that's pretty much the last purchase. It was like $45 after the Christmas season, and it's I don't have to carry around comic books and whatnot and get them all mangled up.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was about to ask, what comics are you reading currently?
I don't collect consistently, but the last one was obviously the Injustice versus Masters comic.
What'd you think of it?
6-part series. I haven't finished it. I'm up to the third one. I have all 6, but I haven't sat down to finish it. But so far, so good. I like it. I like it a lot.
Did you ever get to check out the He-Man and Thundercats?
I have the trade paperback in my in my fire, and I haven't sat down to read it. But I do intend to. I actually should have read that one before going into this one, because they say it's kind of a continuation.
Yeah, it's pretty intense, man. They definitely took it in a direction where I said to myself, this would be cool to see it played out like in a cartoon or like an animated series, because it was just so crazy, the stuff they did.
Yeah.
I definitely hope you enjoy it,
Yeah. Animated series are that's another thing that's kind of changed so much that, that's where you used to get the kids' attentions, but now there's no Saturday morning cartoons. There's no, it's changed. Our habits of consumption of TV is like, now we watch TV on our time. We don't have to, conform to anybody's schedule,
Oh yeah. It's funny, I have a DVR and I have all these shows DVR'd, all the, Flash and Arrow and Black Lightning and Gotham and all this stuff. And it's just like, yeah, I'll get to it when I get to it. Once in a while I'll watch it the same night, because I don't want something spoiled, because obviously, it's going to happen. Like The Walking Dead, it'll be like, all right, we got to watch this today, because somebody's going to spoil it on Facebook or Instagram or whatever tomorrow.
Exactly. Yeah.
Obviously, growing up, what were some of your favorite toys growing up?
I had a few. Obviously the Masters line was pretty big for me, and I liked the Kenner lines, the 4-inch Batmans.
Yep.
That was pretty much when I was growing out of toys, but that line really captured my attention. I remember the Secret Wars line that they did for Marvel, and DC Superpowers was pretty big for me. Pretty much anything with superheroes or comic book characters was pretty big with me. But there wasn't that many options like there are today. Pretty much that was it. It was if you wanted some Marvel characters, it was the Secret Wars line, and if you wanted some DC, it was a Superpowers line.
Obviously, as a person who does custom figures and who's heavily into buying, different pieces of material, outside of those figures, what's one of your favorite collectibles that you own?
You mean modern or vintage? Or
no, it doesn't matter. Like one of your favorites. You could name one. You could name more than one if you prefer. But
it's probably not something that's interesting to many folks. But one figure that actually kind of put me back into collecting was the Ben 10 series. I didn't know anything about the cartoon, and I just walked by the toy shelf and I saw it, and it grabbed my attention. The Wrath figure. Okay, it's like a muscled up Tony the Tiger.
Yeah. I've seen that one. Yeah.
Yeah, he talks like in a Hulk Hogan cadence, and he just likes to fight. And I found it interesting, and that line really caught my attention. And I got I used to have a pretty good collection of it till my son started watching the series, and
that was the end of that.
I lost about 50, I lost a good 60% of that collection.
You lost your figures in the divorce.
Pretty much. Yeah. Nowadays, a line that's caught my attention is I don't know if you've seen it, is the Disney Toy Box series, where they're doing all these properties in this like animated style, or the Infinity style. Yep. Yeah, I'm not a completist, but I'm picking up the ones that catch my attention. The Boba Fett, most of the Marvel ones, and
my wife got her godson the toys, the Incredibles line from that. They're really well done. You're right. Beautiful figures.
Yeah, and they're reasonably priced too. They're not too. Won't break the bank. I think it's $12 more or less.
Now, obviously, your eyes are set on doing the 5.5 customs. Are you gonna branch out at any time? Do you see yourself doing like Marvel Legends customs, things like that? Are you comfortable doing the 5.5?
No, for now, I don't see trying any other lines. The 5.5 style just lends itself to customization to me more than others, because figures with high articulation, it's harder to get that different paint on. That's not factory paint because of, when you move the parts, you will run into some, it'll chip, or you'll scrape off some paint. And this style, they're like plastic statues because they have, at the best, they have 6 points of articulation. That's all you have to worry about. So, and for me, that is just a body style. It's what I like seeing. And for now, I don't see trying any other scale.
Last question, and people always have a little fun with this. If you could have dinner with someone dead or alive, who would it be? What would you eat? And what would you talk about?
Wow, that's a good one. I haven't thought of that one. Dead or alive? I would have liked to sit down with Bruce Lee. The guy's, I'm a martial arts fan, and he had some great ideas on not just combat, but also on life. Guy was a big philosophy guy, and to eat pizza. Pizza's my favorite food, and to talk about just get his general ideas on hand-to-hand combat. I think he was taken a bit soon, and he probably had some things that he wasn't able to share.
It's with you saying that, favorite Bruce Lee movie?
Enter the Dragon.
All right. There you go. Some people like to say Game of Death. So,
Game of Death is structured kind of like video game where you're going up boss levels. There's a cool factor to that, but, he wasn't in the whole movie. And Enter the Dragon, just you can't beat that.
No, absolutely, 100%. All right, last piece before we wrap things up. We like to do one, reach one, teach one. Just to give listeners and people looking to start a business or a hobby similar to our guests, a piece of actionable advice. What would you recommend somebody that's looking to get into action figure customization, whether it's 5.5 or in general? What's some words of advice you'd give them?
If you're thinking about it, just do it. Get cheap figures. Get a good lot of cheap figures because when you're starting out, you are gonna mess up. You are gonna create some bad figures. You're not gonna be painting straight lines just from the get go. Get a good lot of cheap figures and just put the paint to the figures. Just try it out, and it might if you see you're progressing, then keep going. If you see you're getting worse, maybe customization ain't for you. Maybe it's better to collect them or do it for fun. It all depends what you want to do. If it's for a hobby, just do it. It's a great hobby to get into. If you're looking at for more of as an additional income, then you should definitely look up some YouTube videos. There's a lot of great videos on how to work with sculpt. What materials, epoxy, how to work with acrylic paints, how to seal acrylic paints good. You really want to become knowledgeable before you just start throwing figures together,
Now, do you recommend people start with brushes, fine brushes to work on their lines? Definitely not jumping into airbrushing, right?
Oh no, I mean I use spray cans. I haven't done airbrushing yet. I use spray paint and but brushes to begin with. You have to really get into how to do the details before you go into something bigger, because airbrushing works more when you're doing more like 5 or 6 figures at a time than just doing one at a time. If you're just doing one, airbrushing is, you won't really need to do it if you're hand painting just one figure. Nice.
I think that's some great piece of advice for people that are looking to get into this. I think, seeing the amazing work that you're doing, which if you don't know, I mentioned it earlier in the interview, you can follow Carlos on Instagram. It's, Charlie 5.5, Charlie _ 5.5. And you can see some of his great work that's on there, and you can definitely get some inspiration. And, this is, if people want to reach you, they can reach out to you through this account on IG, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've gotten a lot of, I've made actually a lot of friends and a lot of inquiries through the Instagram page. Yeah. I pretty much set it up for for my hobby. There's really not much of my personal stuff there. It's my hobby page,
Awesome. All right. Well, with that, Carlos, we really want to thank you for sharing the toys and tech of your trade.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me, man. Flattered.
All right. That wraps our interview with Carlos, aka Charlie 5.5. We're going to make sure to link to his Instagram account in the show notes for this episode, as well as some of the other stuff that we discussed. Full disclosure, as always, sometimes the items we talk about, we do use affiliate links. For those of you that don't know what that is, affiliate links are links to the products that we talk about, where if you click on that link and make a purchase or even visit that site in general, we may receive a small piece of monetary compensation. It doesn't affect your purchase, doesn't affect what you're looking at, doesn't affect the site that you're visiting, but that little bit of compensation goes towards obviously allowing us to purchase better equipment, make improvements, and just continue to give you guys the best experience possible, whether it's on air, on the site, or on video. So by all means, please feel free to use those links for any of your purchases. We would greatly appreciate it. Last but not least, as always, episodes of this show are released bi-weekly every Tuesday on iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, and Spotify. There is going to be a slight change to the schedule for the month of March, just because we have so many guests, and some of them, their interviews are time sensitive. So there will be back-to-back episodes in the coming weeks, with the pretty much through March, and April we'll probably go back to our regular schedule of every other Tuesday. But at the end of the month, we'll be sharing our interview with Peter Melnick from the Marvelists. Man, what a fun interview that was. I hope you guys enjoy it. If you're into comic books, podcasting, and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that interview was a blast, and I can't wait to share it with you guys. If you're interested in being a guest on a future episode of Toys and Tech of the Trade, please feel free to reach out via email, rich@rageworks.net, or via the Contact Us form on the site. If you're interested in advertising on this show or any of the other shows on the Rageworks Podcast Network, you can email me, rich@rageworks.net, or fill out the advertiser form on the site, and we will get back to you. Last but not least, as always, if you want to keep up with Rageworks, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the usual social media outlets. Our primary method of engagement, though, as of late, has been Facebook via the Facebook fan page, as well as our Rageworks Facebook group. So if you're interested in talking to me and some of the other hosts on the network about toys, tech, video games, wrestling, sports, by all means, feel free to join the community. We'll gladly welcome you with open arms. And Instagram definitely has been something we've been going very aggressive with in the last coming weeks, especially with Toy Fair and everything else. So if you're on Instagram, give us a follow at Rageworks, and you can find me also at RageWorksRich. All right, guys, thank you for checking out the latest episode of Toys and Tech of the Trade. We'll see you next time. Peace.